Dear students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. Vidya K from Srimati VHT Central Institute of Home Science, Bangalore. Today I am here to present this paper on action research, how and why action research in ECE, and the steps to be taken in action research. There are many issues pertaining to early childhood with regard to the schools, problems within the schools, teaching practices and the target group. There is a need to address these issues by the teachers, caretakers, facilitators and other persons concerned in this field. Looking at the problems is just the start. But for reasonable solutions within certain constraints matters a lot. To look in problems and come up with solutions, one needs to follow an approach, and that is called as action research. Action research is a form of research or a study that is carried out during the course of an action. Action refers to an activity or an occupation or a classroom transaction between teacher and students, employees involved in a project work, and so on. Action research is carried out to improve the quality of life of the people involved in the research as well as the researcher. Action research helps one change the thought process, actions, and gives directions. Action research is a process of systematic inquiry that seeks to improve social issues affecting the lives of everyday people, as told by Bogdan and Bilkin et al. Action research is found to be practiced by people in the field of education. Let's learn in general about action research to get more understanding and then its importance in the field of early childhood education. The learning objectives: to understand action research and its process and the steps to be followed to conduct action research. Understand the importance of action research helps the learner to apply action research in everyday classroom transactions with children belonging to early childhood years, identifying problem areas to improve the quality of teaching, learning approaches practiced in the classroom. History of action research. Kurt Lewin, a social psychologist, was the first person to coin the term action research during the 1940s. Stephen Corey was the first person to use action research in the field of education. During its genesis, action research was not approved by the researchers and was termed as an unscientific because it can be used by common man for any purpose. But again, in the 1970s, action research picked up momentum and practitioners started rationalizing its applicability in the field of scientific research designs and methodologies. Over the years, action research has been defined in many different ways and has acquired new meanings. Action research, a new meaning. Action research is a systematic inquiry whose aim is to answer questions of any practitioner of local concern which does not require any training. Action research aims to contribute both to the practical concerns of people in an immediate problematic situation and to the goals of social science by joint collaboration within a mutually acceptable ethical framework by Rappaport. A general term to refer to research methodologies and projects where the researcher tries to directly improve the participating organizations and at the same time to generate scientific knowledge, as said by Nock. So exercise 1 is fill in the blank. Dash was the first person to coin the term action research and the answer is Kurt Lewin. The next question: action research can be used only in the field of education. Is it true or false? It's definitely false. Steps in action research. The basic steps in action research are identifying the problem, data collection, analysis of data, planning mode of action, applying the action research, analysis of the action, and plan future action. Identifying the problem. Problems can be numerous, but it is very important to identify the pressing issue that needs to be addressed. Planning starts at this stage as soon as the problem has been identified. Data collection. Collecting the relevant data from various sources is an important factor to understand the problem identified by the researcher. Data can be collected in the form of interviews, observations, diaries, photos, videos, and questionnaires. Analyzing the data collected. The data collected has to be categorized and analyzed quantitatively and qualitatively. Action plan. Depending upon the analysis of data, the researcher will have planned the nature of intervention that needs to be given to address the problem identified through data collection. Applying the action plan. Once the action plan is finalized, it has to be applied to test the efficiency of the plan as well as to observe any changes in the subjects involved in the action research process. Analysis of the action plan. To test the efficiency of the action plan, data can be collected, analyzed and evaluated. Plan for future action. Evaluation of the action plan will help the researcher in knowing the efficiency of the action and will help define further actions that can be taken if needed. Looking at the various models of action research, there are many models. Now let me just tell in brief about all these models. The first model is the action research interacting spiral. It was given by Ernest Stringer. Now this model is about how the action research process should happen. It runs on the similar basis of all the research models, but what it says is that it says look at and think. Look is you have to first identify the problem, act is act to the problem, and think what the future plan of action can be. The next model is Levin's action research spiral. Now Levin's action research spiral is almost similar to the general model that I spoke about earlier. So he tells about that it's very important to identify one general or one initial idea, then finding facts. After finding facts, planning, taking the first step of action, then evaluating that first step, then again amend an action, and then finally take a second step of action. And that is how the process goes on for Levin's action spiral model. Then the next model is Calhoun's action research cycle. So this is almost similar to the cycle, again the one that I had represented earlier. In this, the cycle starts with the first stage, wherein selection of area, then collection of data, organizing data, analyzing and interpreting data, and finally taking action. Now the fourth model is called the Bachmann's action research cycle. In this also the action research goes in cyclic format. In this research, the action research goes in cyclic formats. What he says is that first we need to reflect on the problem. So reflecting on the problem is thinking a lot about what the problem is, from where the problem arose, and then acting on the problem. So you need to act upon the problem by looking at the data that you have collected and thinking about what can be the outcomes when you act upon the problem. So acting upon the problem is like you will have lots of intervention programs in the acting, and you will try to put it into the curriculum if you are in an education setup. Talking about the next model, that is Reel's action research model. This is also a spiral model, but he talks in three different ways. There are three cycles in this model. The first cycle is study and plan, then taking action, then collection and analyzing the evidence, and then finally reflecting. After reflecting the first part, then again you have to again study what has been planned, again take up action upon that, the previous cycle, again collect and analyze evidence about the first cycle, and then again reflect about the first cycle. This completes the second cycle. Once you have completed the second cycle, you need to come to the third cycle, wherein you are going to study and plan for cycle 1 and cycle 2. Then you will analyze on taking an action about cycle 1 and cycle 2. Then again collect evidence and analyze it, and finally reflect. So Reel says that this is like a spiral where the cycles can be like cycle 4, cycle 5, cycle 6, and it can just go on and on. Now the next model is Piggott-Irwin's action research model. Now in this also there are lots of cycles actually. So first is you will start with the the first thing is checking the problem, where the problem is. So you have to analyze the current situation. So to analyze the current situation, there is a cycle going around it. You need to get into the past, analyze the situation that had happened before, why is it happening now, reflect upon that. Once you have done that, you need to get into the action plan. In the action plan, you are talking about the interventions. Again here, you need to plan for the action plan. If you're planning about an intervention, you need to plan for it and you need to reflect about it, whether it is okay or not. After these two, you need to go into review, wherein you have to review what changes can be made for the 2 cycles that have already happened. This also will go through a spiral process wherein you're planning the review and reflecting the review. And finally, it will go to reporting and recommendations, and then a continued action plan can happen in this action research model. Another set of self-check questions. Write the correct sequence of steps in the action research. So it is identifying problem, data collection, analyzing, applying action plan, and future action plan. Is an example of the process of action research in a classroom setting. Identifying the problem. A teacher finds that some children in her classroom are not able to follow instructions given by her for writing alphabets in spite of having been given learning experiences previously. So, the first step has been taken in identifying the problem. Data collection. Now, the teacher will have to look in her teaching methods and also try and find any commonalities in the particular group of children who are facing the problem. Get data from other teachers who are handling the classes, compare their data with yours, collect the notebooks, any diary entries and teaching methods followed. Also look for any developmental delays. Analyzing the data collected. Once the data is ready, the teacher will be able to find the root cause of the problem by making comparisons qualitatively and quantitatively. Planning and applying the action plan. If, for example, the cause of the problem differences in teaching method, the teacher will have to make a plan to change her teaching method, and the change has to be implemented at a slow pace so that the other children will also not feel the change. The plan has to be followed for a certain time duration to get the results, and it requires the patience of the teacher. Analysis of the action plan. Once the teacher feels that his or her action plan has brought in the desirable changes, the teacher will have to collect data to analyze the success of the action plan. This data can again be notebooks of children, periodic assessments, and also anecdotes from other teachers. Plan for future action. From the analysis, the teacher finds an improvement in the learning of the children. He or she can recommend the action to other teachers, share results, and so on. The teacher can also improvise the action plan for any future purpose also. Writing action reports. It's very important to document all the research process, so it's important to know the steps in writing an action research report, which is similar to the methods used in other forms of research. Given below is a very generalized way of writing action report. Introduction. An introduction which informs any person reading the report about the topic of research chosen. The introduction defines all the variables and also answers the reason for conducting the research. Review of related literature. Presenting related research studies, articles will make the research strong as well acts as a support for the report. The research articles must be related to the problem defined by the investigator. Methodology. Aim, objective, and hypothesis of the study has to be defined. Terminologies used in the research process has to be defined. A detailed description of the tools used to collect data for the study, the sample size, and the subjects taken up for the study, statistical analysis if applied. Intervention. A detailed description of how the action plan will be planned and executed by the researcher. The researcher can prepare modules or use mapping techniques, can use various art form methods to see the effects of the action plan. Interpretation. The data collected has to be tabulated in the form of graphs and used as an extra source of analysis. The results obtained has to be discussed with supportive research studies. Summary and conclusion. The report will be summarized and concluded with recommendations for future research. Care has to be taken to put the references and appendix. Characteristics of action research. Focuses on the problem that needs to be addressed immediately and finding solutions as quickly as possible. Action research does not look at creating theories or making any general statements. Through action research, one can improve one's own practices, bring a change in the community as well as in the work environment. Action research is not back-breaking and needs very little resources and finances. Practicality of the purpose is given a lot of focus. There is no set rules to be followed. The researcher can set his or her own rules and frameworks. Action research is a collaborative and dynamic research involving a lot of action and sharing of results. Advantages of action research. Anybody can use action research. Action research helps researchers, educators get concrete data and not just rely on other preferences and doubts. Action research addresses both the quality of learning outcome gained as well as professional growth. A very beautiful aspect of action research is that there action happening almost immediately after the recognition of the problem and leads to change in the surrounding. At a classroom level, action research leads to developing lots of various teaching learning techniques which will encourage students and teachers to practice inquiry-based teaching and learning. Disadvantages of action research. The findings of one researcher or educator cannot be generalized for everyone. The same issue can be overcome in a very different approach by another researcher or educator. Obstacles and delays may be faced by the researcher or educator due to various reasons. There are various models available which can add to the confusion of the researcher or educator in choosing an appropriate model. Action research is prone to a lot of bias. Methods of applying action research in early childhood education. There are 3 ways of conducting action research in an educational setup as given by Ferencz. Individual teacher research. A single teacher takes charge of doing the research study. The statement of research problem, methods of data evaluation, analysis, action plan and evaluation depends on the single teacher. The outcomes of the researcher can be shared with other staff and can be used also. Collaborative action research. A team of 2 or more investigators is formed. The team may include teachers, principal, other officials and so on. Tasks are divided amongst the team members after the research problem has been identified. The team will be meeting regularly to discuss the progress. The group follows the same process of data collection, analysis, action plan, evaluation and will share the outcomes of research which can be made susceptible to future changes. School-wide action research involves every person who is involved with the institution. This action research is usually a long-term project with the aim of bringing in changes into the entire system of the institution. For example, if the school has to change the curriculum, the higher authorities of the school will have to identify issues with the current curriculum and bring in experts to suggest their opinions about different curriculums. Groups will be formed who will work in the same level of collaboration action research. Care should be taken that the action plan must be feasible for both teachers and students. Once this issue is addressed, the results should be shared with all the members of the school. Once the action plan has been set and starts functioning, care should be taken to assess it periodically and give sufficient time for this whole school to reform on the changes. Self-check questions. True or false? Anybody cannot do action research. The answer is false. Everybody can do action research. Dash is a method where only one person is involved in the action research process. That is the individual teacher research. Need for action research in ECE. According to UNESCO, early childhood care and education is an integral part of basic education and represents the first and essential step in achieving the goals of education for all. It is a very well-known fact that early years are most crucial years of a child's life. Therefore, improving the quality of life of children by providing adequate nourishment, care, giving importance to cognitive, social, psychological, emotional development has become a major concern for educators in the field of early childhood. Given below are a few points where action research can help in the field of ECE. Access to early childhood care and education, preparation for school readiness, transaction are one of the most important difficult phases the child passes through, which is very stressful and the child faces a lot of anxiety. To help children overcome this, action research is a way to address. Improvement of early childhood curricula, programs and policies, bring about changes in early childhood education training programs, application of theory into practice. There are many theoretical perspectives of learning which can be applied in classrooms, for which can use action research to test best theories that can be used in the classrooms. To address delays in development, all children go through the same developmental process, but the rate of development is unique to each and every child. If the teacher comes across any of these issues, steps can be taken through action research as a means to address these issues. To educate the importance of play as a medium of learning and teaching children through art forms. Play are in many forms. Every type of play gives it hands-on experience to the children. Rhymes, stories, dramatization, creative activities are also another forms of learning through which a teacher can learn to innovate by using action research. So, let's conclude this presentation. Action research is a matter of pressing demand in the field of education and cannot be taken for granted. It is very important to acknowledge the quality and quantity of work that goes into action research. One's task is accomplished when the effects of action research is visible in the classroom. It is very important on the part of educators who have used action research to enlighten their co-fellows about the importance of practicing action research in classroom. The early childhood years are also called as vital and foundational years because of the vulnerability of this age group. The education to children at this age is what stays throughout. Action research is conducted in the field of education to improve quality of education programs, improve schools and teaching learning environments. It's always a challenge to meet the standards of community, and to meet it, there is a need to encourage research, experimentation and inquiry. Being in an era of technological advancements, there is a need for educators to practice, recreate the prevailing systems, and hence a right time to put action research into practice.